Hi, welcome. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications. And today we are interviewing a substitute teacher named Miss Miki Clemons. How are you doing today?
I am great. I'm tired, but I'm here.
Glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
Your, what is it like to be a substitute teacher?
Sometimes it depends on where I'm at because, sometimes it's really crazy and people are running around going nuts, and sometimes it's calm and I don't have to say too much. So sometimes I really like the hustle and bustle. Sometimes I don't like it. And sometimes I like the quiet and sometimes I don't. So it's different every time. Every class is different. Every building is different.
What is your schedule like?
I work the same schedule as the students usually. So I'm there for myself. I try to get there a little bit early. So I want to be there at least a half an hour, 15 minutes to a half an hour before the students get there. Because if I don't know what I'm doing that day, or if I don't know what the teacher has that day, then I want to get there early so I can prepare. And I want to sound like I know what I'm talking about, even when I don't know what I'm talking about. I want to pretend I do. So I really want to know what's going on. When I work the long-term assignments, I usually take my stuff home, research it, know what I'm talking about. So when I get there, which is usually again 15 minutes before the kids, then I'm ready to go. We're prepared. And then, like, if you guys are off for the holidays or for break or for snow day, I get the same thing. And if you're there, usually I'm in school. So the hours are pretty much the same. When the school day ends, I'm done, except when I clean the room or anything else I have to do. But usually it's the same.
If you're a long-term sub, do you have to do grades?
Yes. So I've been doing that probably for about, well, since before COVID. I've been doing the long term sub. So almost every year I've had long term positions come up that I am more than happy to do. I love it. I like getting to know the kids. I like being able to joke around a little bit more, do some fun activities with them. So when you get to know people, you have a more of an opportunity to like have fun and do those sorts of things. So I like those jobs. So anytime one has come up, I've tried to put my name in and, just let them know that I'm around. And yeah, I do grading when I do that.
What school districts do you work at when you're subbing?
So I've been in Waterford. I've been in Birmingham. Birmingham, I did long-term sub for a while, mostly with kindergarten, the younger ones. But I worked in Birmingham for a while. I mostly work in West Bloomfield, but that's because my kids are here and I can get to the schools where I need to go faster. We live here, so it makes more sense. And I want to see the school district succeed because this is where I'm at.
Do you have a favorite school district out of all of the school districts?
Yeah, I like West Bloomfield. Again, I've known a lot of these kids. Well, I've known you for like a really long time. I've known so many of these kids because they're in the school with my kids, and I've known them since they were younger. When they were in elementary school, I did the motor moms and dads. So I was very active when, my kids were really little. So I just like the school district. I like the teachers. Everybody's been so fun for me to work with. My kids have loved all their teachers. So, I like being here because we're here. So I want to be where not just where my family is, but where we live and where we can help, make it better.
Is it different being a sub for people like your kids' friends versus like being a
Hmm.
parent necessarily seeing them versus being a substitute teacher?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because there are some kids that I've known. For example, my older son, he's in 10th grade, and he's had a friend from when he was in preschool, like early preschool. And I've known her forever. And when I see her now, like, she has a hard time calling me Mrs. Clemons because she didn't learn me like that. So, it is hard with some of those transitions. I like getting to know the kids because I know, who they are. I can talk to them. Sometimes, I think that they can open up to me a little bit more, maybe than some other subs if they're having a hard time with something or they feel more comfortable coming to ask me something. And I have more of a relaxed atmosphere when I talk to kids. And if I know them, it just I think help build that rapport a little bit more. So sometimes it's a little weird though, because I have very much tried to keep myself separate. So when I'm at school, I am very much like a teacher. And even when I see my own kids, I am a teacher and they know that. And my kids have called me Mrs. Clemens too, which feels really weird. But I've made a point to try to keep it separate so that when I'm out and I'm like when they have an after school activity or I'm helping out or doing something like that, I want to be very casual. I talk to the kids casually, but when I'm doing my job, it's a professional thing. And I want them to see me as somebody of authority when I'm in class. But it's weird sometimes.
What subbing program do you work for?
I work for a company, actually, the whole subbing program in Michigan. Most school districts, not all of them, but most school districts use a company called Edustaff. So I actually work for Edustaff. They have an online system called Red Rover. And when positions come up or when teachers need somebody, either the school, the district supervisors, administration, somebody will post it, or the teachers themselves will post the job, and it will pop into an opportunity list. And then the district subs can then go on and pull it. And if they want to work it, they can accept it. And if not, they can decline it or whatever. So it's a very easy system to use.
Do you use Edustaff if you're a building sub for roles, or do they just sort of tell you in the morning you're in this class?
So when you work, so yeah, you still work through Edustaff. Now I haven't been a building sub, but I've been in the schools all year, pretty much, like at the middle school last year, because I worked a lot of the long-term jobs. But as a building sub, the way that it usually works is you don't get assigned jobs. You're just one job is in your system for the whole year. And then you can't take other jobs, things like that. So the school tells you when you get there what you're going to do, where you're going to go, things like that. So you still technically work for Edustaff. You get paid, through that company, things like that. But you actually work with the school district, like that particular school.
What is the interview process like to work for Edustaff?
I think that things have changed over the years because when I first did it, and mind you, this is like early 2016, I think, at this point. You had to have a degree. So you had to have graduated from college. So you had to have at least an associate's degree with so many credit hours of being done. And then you go online and you actually apply, and they call you and they ask you questions. You go to like a training to see if it would be a good fit. When you go through the day of training, then you can, apply for districts, but each district is different. So I have actually talked to Walled Lake, and they actually have like on-site hiring. So even though you work through Edustaff, they won't use you unless you have been interviewed by the people in administration. So different districts have the opportunity. And in Waterford, you have to go to the administration building and actually get a card in order to work in Waterford. So a lot of things run their companies or run their districts completely different.
What was that day of training like for Edustaff?
It was long. They go through pretty much every single thing that you need to know. So you're there for quite a number of hours. You're not just filling out forms, which are all important, which is like, all of the normal job related forms and not really retirement forms, but any kind of form really that you need for working that they have to submit to the government and so on and so forth. You have to log into the system, learn the system, but then they start going into actual stuff that happens in the classes. So they go through examples of what can you learn from the class? What can you bring to the class? Here's how to handle different situations. But of course, every class is so different. We just never know, But yeah, they go through a lot of that kind of stuff, how to talk to people. We go through different scenarios where you kind of work with people in the class to handle different scenarios. And then you pretend to be somebody, they pretend to be somebody, and you handle all those situations and you kind of learn from there.
Do you have professional development days with Edustaff?
We don't, no. They oftentimes go online and put professional development stuff out there. And for myself, again, being a long-term, I do go in and attend some of the ones that are offered by the schools. So individual ones, they have like their learning programs with the schools. And I mean, I've taken classes like handling people with diplomacy and tax. So I've taken some outside courses. I think you can always better yourself, but officially they don't have anything, really for substitute teachers other than the training that they have. They have online stuff that they expect you to look at, but that's about it.
What inspired you to be a substitute teacher?
So before I became a substitute teacher, I used to work in business, and I was actually I handled the customer service, but I also handled accounts. So I was an account manager that handled problems coming in for a cell phone company. So I was in sales. I was in employee programs. I was in a whole bunch of stuff. And I took a position It was actually a promotion, but then it was new. So they said, we don't know what's going to happen with this position. So I went to training, did all the stuff I had to do. I was there probably, and I had been there for almost 11 years. And they decided to get rid of the whole program. So everybody that was associated from the program was let go. And at the time, my kids were a lot younger. And I said, well, my husband works midnights. I don't know what I'm going to do because he sleeps during the day. I don't know what I'm going to do. I have to get my kids where they got to go. They have after school activities. They have things with their class I want to participate in and be able to go to. And before, my job had a lot of flexibility. So I'm like, what can I do that kind of works around their schedule? Because if I've got to go to the office, my husband's not home or has to work over or something, and they have a snow day, what am I going to do? I have no options. So one of the times I was volunteering at one of the elementary schools, and I had kind of become conversational with one of the ladies behind the desk, and I was talking to her, and she goes, well, why don't you just become a substitute? And I said, I'm not a teacher. What do I know? And she's like, well, you're here all the time. You work with the kids all the time. And that's by choice. I wanted to do that. And she's like, you're here anyway. So, what they require is that you have a degree, which I do. And, if you want to, just go talk to them and see what happens. So I did. And here I am. And if I knew I was going to enjoy it as much as I do, I probably would have gone to school to become a teacher. I enjoy it that much. Like, I really like it.
You could always do that.
I could. To be perfectly honest, I like the flexibility. So, and mind you, it's totally different, the requirements and things to do that. But for right now, it works around my kids' schedule. So if they are going someplace and I want to be able to be a chaperone or I want to help out with something, I just don't have to work that day. Or, if something happens or whatever, somebody in my family gets hurt, something else happens, I don't have to work that day or that week or whatever. When you're a teacher, you have to try to find somebody to cover. And I know a lot of districts and a lot of schools are having trouble with that right now. So this gives a perfect opportunity for me to kind of control my schedule, which I like. Honestly, I don't know. I love what I do. I'm so happy to be there. I don't know if I'd be a real good like everyday teacher if I just get frustrated. I don't know. I don't know. I think about it all the time, but I don't know for officially what I'm going to do.
I see you as a teacher. I see you.
Do you?
Uh,
Yeah, you know me pretty well. You've known me a lot of years.
Yes. What is the easiest thing about your job?
I don't know. Every day is so different. Like I like so much being prepared. And the days when we like have movies or like right now, I'm long-term subbing over at Oakland Early College and they're in the middle of watching a movie right now because we just finished up reading a book. So the days when they have time to read and they actually do it, whether it's here, whether it's at the middle school, the high school, the elementary school, and they have reading time, and I watch the kids read, and all I have to do is just walk around and observe that. Like, I love knowing that they're getting that education and that they're learning and that they want to do it. And I mean, it's easy for me because I don't have to do too much at that point. But when I see them actually want to do it, like, I get excited by that too because I love reading myself. My kids like reading. We like books. We spent way too much at book sales. So I like when I have those times or when we can watch a movie and just be a little bit more relaxed, like right before holidays, even though sometimes the kids are crazy, it is a little bit more relaxed for me because, we kind of go into it knowing that they're going to be like that. So for me, I'm kind of prepared for that. And it just kind of makes it a more fun atmosphere and a more relaxing atmosphere for me.
Do you believe that since COVID, more people have been less motivated to read and spend more time on technology, or do you see it
Oh
opposite?
yeah. No, it's in every school and every time you see the kids standing outside with their phones, you see them in the school in the classrooms with their phones, you see them walking around the halls with their phones. Now some schools don't allow it and the kids are usually pretty good about it and the schools follow up, but in some they do allow it and sometimes they don't know where they're going, they don't know what they're doing and if I'm only there for a day or two, sometimes it is hard to get them to even pay attention to me because they're on their phones, where they're allowed. So sometimes that is more difficult. It's much worse since COVID, I think.
What is the hardest thing about being a substitute teacher?
Um, there have been times where I didn't have plans, and so I kind of went in blind. And sometimes teachers, they didn't know they weren't going to be there. I get there and the administration will be like, okay, you need to go here and then go here and then go here. I'm not prepared going into those situations. So even though I can jump in, I feel, I like to be prepared. I'm one of those people that really, really likes to be prepared. So when I'm not and I have to run from class to class, I'm afraid I'm going to be late. That'll look bad. I'm afraid I won't have time to learn what I'm supposed to do. That'll look bad. You know what I mean? I don't want to appear that I don't know what I'm doing, even though I might not know specifically what they're doing. Like I've really tried to know a lot of general stuff. So I like being prepared. So when I'm not prepared, I think that's the worst for me. It gives me anxiety.
You like to arrive there, know what you're doing, and so that you can better help. You don't have to necessarily know everything about it, but you want
Right.
to have a general idea.
Yeah. Oh, and I've been in a lot of math classes where I've been with people that either like I've been helping or whatever, and I've either been there where they don't know what they're doing, and I'm like, well, I don't think that that's right, and like it feels weird. Like I like to know because I don't want to be on the receiving end of that where somebody tells me I'm not doing it right. And it's like, well, maybe I'm not. And I'm very honest that if I don't know something, I'm like, okay, give me a minute. Let me look this up or let me check it or let me do something. And if I don't know it or if I've said the wrong thing, I'm very honest and say, like, okay, I was completely wrong. Let's just forget everything I just said. Let's go back and do it the other way. So I'm honest about it because I think we're all people, we're all honest, we're all unsure of a lot of stuff. So I think if we're just honest about it, I think people respect it a little bit more. So I try to do that.
Would you say math is probably one of your least favorite classroom subjects to teach or sub in?
Actually, no, I love math. I actually, when I was in high school and college, I took math as all my elective courses because I liked it so much. And I wanted like, I don't want to say an easy A, but to me, an easy A was math. So I loved it. I tutored for it. I love math. So going in now, and I've seen classes where they don't know what they're doing, and I've taught maybe a different way of doing something, and it clicked and they got it. And seeing the light go on and somebody gets so excited that they finally understand something, like that excites me when I can see, especially with math, because everybody needs math. And when I can see that somebody's excited about that, that gets me excited. So I love math.
What is your favorite thing about your job?
I do. I just like talking to the kids. I learn so much. And I mean, I like that I can have fun with them. I like that I can, even though I've been told in high school I'm not really supposed to talk to kids because, some people like, they're like, substitute teachers don't talk to kids in high school. They just don't do that. But I like to talk to kids. I like to talk anyway, obviously. And I talk all the time, whether I'm in school, at home, whatever. I talk all the time. So I like going and talking to the kids. I like learning from them. I like hearing things that maybe I didn't know. That's fun for me. So I think it keeps me young, but it also just makes me more excited to learn from them. So
When people say that, though, of like that you guys aren't supposed to talk to students, I feel like it doesn't make sense because it's like you truly will get the best help if you know the teacher or know the student. And if you don't take time to get to know them, how are they going to have that best? I've heard many things where it's like students should try to get to know the teachers, doesn't matter what grade.
yeah, and that's part of why I like long term is because I get to know the students better and I get a chance to not just talk to them, but learn what they can do and learn about maybe their families or, like I said, when people have known me, like you have known me for a long time, when people have known me for the long time, they feel more comfortable coming up and talking to me. When you're only there for a day in that particular classroom, and you do sometimes you go back again and again, sometimes you see the students in other classes so they feel more comfortable with you. But when you're only there a day, it makes it very difficult to build those relationships. And sometimes, especially kids might not feel comfortable coming up and talking to you. And they might not want to open up. So you go up to them and they're like, I don't want to answer you. I don't want to tell you. You're only here one day. It's kind of like you don't have to listen to the babysitter because mom and dad are the real parents. Sort of that thing.
Would you say that's part of your least favorite is when you're there a day?
I it's definitely harder. And like I said, for me, I like to go to classes where I know kids and I get a chance to get to know them and I get to go to the same class again and again and again. Like I really enjoy that, which is weird that I say that I like being a substitute teacher because I get to go anywhere I want, that I don't want to be a regular teacher with my own class. And yet I want to be with them every single day. I mean, I know that sounds so weird, but I get to see so many different versions of the kids. So I'll see them in one class and they'll be completely different acting than in another class because of the different students that are around them. So when I was in school, I loved psychology and I still kind of read psychology things whenever I can read like stuff online or I have a book here about it. And for me to try to think about how people are influenced by that and, influenced by others around them, how different people's minds works, what you can get the best out of kids. When I can go from class to class and see similar people with different groups and how that they kind of relate to that, I love that. So it's kind of one of those I learn by observing sort of a thing. So I can learn about the kids by observing kind of their surroundings, who they're with, things like that. So I don't know. I like it, but it's kind of weird to say.
What are some of your hobbies?
My hobbies. Anybody who's read my Facebook thing, I cook on Sundays. So usually Saturdays or Sundays. I cook for the week. I love to cook. I am one of those people that like I have a list for everything. So I have a calendar for this, a calendar for that, an online calendar. I have calendars for everything. I'm prepared. Like I said, I like to be prepared. I like to know what's going on. So if you were to ask me on Sunday what we're having for dinner on Friday, I can tell you. Like I plan ahead. So I love to cook. I like to be in the kitchen. I like to do things like that. So, and I love to be creative with food. I do like to read when I have time. Sometimes I just want to, veg out in front of like whatever I can find or whatever, if we have time to watch TV together, which is almost never anymore. But I enjoy doing that. So yeah, and I go grocery shopping. Like I actually like grocery shopping. A lot of people don't, but I do because I do like extreme couponing. So I like to try to find the best deals and then how can I make it better and all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, like I said, I like to have lists and plans. So that's one of my planning things.
Calendars do keep you organized. I
They do.
personally I like Google's calendar a lot because you can do tasks too and not events.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I need to do this. Here's this. And then it's
Hmm.
not on your mind like, oh crap, I forgot about this.
Yes. And I tell my kids the same thing. Yeah, we like I don't use as many online. We have actually a calendar that the whole family uses that I try to get everybody to use because I said if somebody needs to pick you up, I need to know if it's got to be me or somebody else, if I've got to do that. So I've got to know what's going on. So I know who's got to be where when, if I've got to be here, if my husband's got to be here, whatever. I've got to know all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's one of my and I tell them using a calendar will get it off your brain, especially for like high school students. You guys do a lot. Like you're just busy. You do a lot, whether it's extracurricular, whether it's school stuff, and you have so many different classes and middle school too. You guys have so much stuff that if somebody says, okay, that's due in a week, you might not remember that in a week. It's hard to keep everything straight with everything you guys got going down. Write it down, get it off your mind, and look at it later. That's what I always say. So don't think about it now. Think about it, you know, just take a look at it every day. If you get in the habit of looking at your thing every day, whether it's a task or a calendar, you'll be great.
What is your career history and roles?
Well, I've been working since I was 16, so I have quite a long history and roles. I've worked at a lot of fast food places, McDonald's, Burger King at the time. There was Ponderosa, a steakhouse. I worked there. So I've done kind of my roles with all that. I was an assistant store manager over at Blockbuster Video, which tells you how old I am because it's not around anymore. So I used to work at Blockbuster Video. I used to work at marketing company. I went to cell phone companies. I was first with Nextel, and then I switched over. When it switched over, I went with them. Um, I've done several different things, but this is like the most challenging, but I think I get the most out of it too, because I get so many different variety of people and dealing with like students or kids as opposed to dealing with adults, which when I was with well, it was Nextel and then it became Sprint. So when I was with them, I worked with the big three, the big three automotive. I worked with big, huge, large companies that had, over 250,000 people here in Michigan. And I had to go to warehouses and I had to set up events and people came to talk to me. And dealing with professionals like that and dealing with more business oriented is so different than talking to kids. And I don't know, I feel more relaxed somehow. I don't know. I like it.
What is your education?
I went to when I was in high school. So I used to go to Rochester Adams. I was a Rochester person. And when I graduated, I didn't want to go to a big college. I really didn't know what I wanted to do, honestly. I wanted to go into something with business because at the time business was really big. So I wanted to go into something with business. And I wasn't sure exactly what that was going to be. And our counselors were not as involved with like checking in with us. Like we could go to our counselors, but they didn't help give us direction. So it was kind of like, what are you interested in? Well, maybe go into that, but you kind of had to look for it yourself. So I went to a business college just to get some of my main things, like my math courses out of the way. And, computers was pretty, I don't want to say totally new, but like it was on the rise. So I wanted to learn more about that. And I wanted to do it in a setting where I could get those credits without having to go to like a big university and kind of learn all that stuff. So I wanted to get all that kind of stuff out of the way. And when I was there, that was at Detroit College of Business, which is now Davenport University. I have an associate's that I got there, and I got my bachelor's there, and I got a double bachelor's in marketing and advertising. So, I mean, I love it. I was going to go to an advertising company before I actually went to, at the time it was Nextel, the cell phone company. And it's just like talking to them, something about it just clicked. And I really thought I would like that better. So I went there and, the rest is history. But yeah, and I've taken a lot of classes with them. So they've given me a lot of how to handle people and how to work with people and how to do presentations and things like that, which the college did as well. So I pretty much stayed with them and got my bachelor's to them. So I never went to a bigger university, which at one time I thought I would, but I never did.
Do you regret that decision now, or are you happy that you chose to follow and go to the smaller?
I liked going to the small because at the time I worked as well. So there was one time when I worked, I'm trying to think, while I was going to school full time, I was able to live at home with my parents and I worked in the mornings, I worked at a bank. In the afternoons, I don't even remember, I tutored. In the evenings, I either had a class or two, and depending on when they were, I could change around my tutoring, could change around my schedule. But then at nighttime, I worked Blockbuster Video. I went home, did my homework. If I had a chance to sleep, I was younger. I got no sleep, so that was okay at the time. And then the morning, I went to go work the bank again. And the smaller classes and the smaller locations, I was able to go from like to the bank to go right to where I had to work. I was able to go from tutoring, go to right to Blockbuster Video where I was working. So it gave me a lot more flexibility of the locations that were available to me because it was smaller. And I got a lot more one-on-one instead of having like a teacher's assistant teach us or something like that, which some of the bigger universities do. My teachers were there all the time and they were doing the jobs outside of the college that they were doing in the college. So if they taught like an English thing, they were using some sort of practice in their life or something like that. Our accounting teacher, she did accounting. So she understood it backwards and forwards. So I think it was a lot different. I don't know if I would have changed it looking back. I think it would have just been a different thing, but I don't know that I made a wrong or a right decision. It was just kind of the decision at the time.
When you have anxiety or stress, how do you deal with it?
Um, I'm a very emotional person, and a lot of people have seen me be emotional. I definitely show it, and I don't know if I'm like way overly, I am kind of like all over the place and I fret. I might, get teary. I might cry. Just, if and I have done that, like if I have a break or something and I just get very emotional or, stressed about something going on or worried about something. Really, I try to tackle everything one problem at a time because and again, I make lists. So if I have something on my mind, I will write it down. If it's like 5 things I got to do, 10 things I got to do, I'll write it down. I need to see something. I need to physically hold it, look at it so I can cross it off. And if I get way stressed, I will write down stuff I've already done just so I can cross it off so I can kind of help my mind reset that I've done stuff even if I have like 12 more things to do. So it's kind of like a real mind bender, but I do that for myself to kind of make myself feel like I've accomplished something.
What are your advice for others who are struggling with anxiety or other mental illnesses?
Um, I think first of all, again, if you can find if I've told kids this too, like almost everybody has a phone right now, right? And one of my favorite sayings, and I've told as many people as I can tell as this is possible, but never have a permanent solution for a temporary problem. So the first thing is knowing whatever is going on, whether it's a stress thing, whether whatever. Um, and a lot of people have mental illness or just have anxiety or, a smaller variety, whatever. Um, Never take it too far to where you do something to hurt yourself or somebody else. Like that's terrible. No, and it's hard, especially for younger people, to understand that everything that you're going through right now is only temporary. This is everything. I mean, I hate to say it really is, but everything is temporary. Relationships, maybe you find the love of your life, but most of the time it's a temporary thing, right? When you're in school. And I hope that a lot of relationships work out. Anybody who wants a relationship, go for it. But whether it's a grade, whether it's this, whether it's that, it's temporary, right? This is not your whole life. This is not everything that's going to happen to you in 20, 30, 40 years. So almost everything is temporary. So what you're going through is a temporary situation. So no matter what you're facing, talk to somebody about it. Everybody has phones. Like, talk to yourself on your notes in your phone. Say, this is what I'm going through, and keep it like a diary. Save it. And in another year, listen to it and see if that thing is still how you feel, because you might not feel the same way. And, see how much you've grown, or 5 years, or however long it takes to get out of that situation or feel a little bit differently. I think that you need to talk to somebody, but even if it's just talking to yourself and getting those feelings out. And mind you, I was one of those people that kept a diary because, like I said, I like to write stuff down. So, sometimes I'll look back at stuff I've written a long, long time ago, a story or whatever, and I'll realize like I'm not the same person. I'm totally different. And that was not even true anymore. I don't remember that half the time. So I don't ever want anybody to take a permanent solution to a temporary problem, because most things are just temporary. So trying to reset your mind or understand that this, whatever problem you're facing, however unhappy you are to do something, it's only temporary.
I want to thank you for joining. I want to thank you for all that you do, and you are amazing. I
Oh,